You're listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, episode number 91. Today I'm talking about getting healthy meals and snacks on the table during the hectic back-to-school rush. Specifically, I'll chat about 5 barriers families face during this hectic time, especially with regard to food and meals, and what you can do to overcome those barriers. But before we dive in, let's cue the intro music.
Welcome to the Nourished Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing a healthy child. Here's your host, registered dietitian and childhood nutrition expert, Jill Castle.
Last week, I celebrated my birthday. We went out for dinner together as a family a few days before that, when everyone was home and we could be together before my kiddos started taking off for college. Then, on my actual birthday, the 3 kids that were home took me to the movies in the middle of a work day. Of course, I was working on my birthday, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I was doing. And I have to say, it felt so decadent to go to the movies in the middle of the week, midday. We went to see the movie called The Art of Racing in the Rain. It was so good. Of course, I was one of the only blubbering people in the theater, but it was a movie about a dog and his human. The story is actually narrated by the dog and told from his perspective. So it will get you in the gut, kind of like the Marley and Me. But I have to say, it was a great story, very well crafted. Really kept you into the movie all along. So I definitely recommend it. But even better than that, I recommend sneaking out of work or out of your usual routine in the middle of the day and go to the movies. It's so much fun. Last week, my girls went back to college. And this week, my son begins his last year of high school. So for me, it's a scrambling, hectic time, packing and sorting through all the stuff that needs to happen and be taken to college, filling out all the forms for high school, shopping for supplies, you know the drill. Back to school, there's a lot of stuff going on. And every year there are different needs and different requests and deadlines. Oh, the deadlines. But every year I start this back to school season with goals in mind. And I have goals about so many different things. What time I'll get up in the morning, what time I'll get the kids up in the morning, what time I need to have breakfast ready, what I'll fix for breakfast, how frequently they'll take a sack lunch versus buy it at school, how many family meals I'm targeting for the week, what time the kids will go to bed. I always start the school year off with goals. And yet, despite these good intentions and concrete goals, I find myself facing obstacles along the way, especially with feeding and especially at the back to school time. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm calling this 5 barriers families face with healthy eating when school starts. So if you want to get the show notes, head over to jillcastle.com/091, and you'll find all the links to the articles and podcast episodes that are related to this one and of which I mention in this episode. Okay, so the start of the school year always feels like the new year for me, and maybe it feels that way for some of you too. It's a time to reset the schedule, start over, improve on things, sort of a clean slate, if you will. And often, like New Year's, we all start with these good intentions, but something just gets in the way. We want to cook more, but we don't have enough time. We want to eat healthier, but it seems too expensive. Or we want to have more family meals, but no one is home to eat them. It can be frustrating when we set these goals, but we bump into real big obstacles, barriers that get in the way, and they generally center around 5 main things: time, money, being too busy or fractured, medical concerns, and even uncooperative personalities. So we're going to go through each of those 5 barriers, and I want to just emphasize that instead of giving up or compromising your plans when you face these barriers, I want to explore some solutions to overcome them so you can have a successful year with your child. So number 1 is time. And well, I heard something recently. Time is the only thing we can control. It's definitely a finite asset that we have, meaning that there's only 24 hours in the day. And I mean, I like to get my 7 or 8 hours, 8 preferably, of sleep at night. So that really cuts things down. The other aspect about time is things generally take longer than I plan for them to take. I'll write my list for the day of all the things I want to get done in my work, and it's always over the top. It's always more than I can actually achieve. Goals, yes, but sometimes I overestimate my efficiency with my time, and I overestimate or even underestimate how long things will take. And heck, then there's the wild card with time. How responsive are the people around you to the things that you want to get done within the time frame that you have. So for me, it's my kids. I might be thinking that we're heading for a drop-off to practice and it's going to take me, 5 minutes to pack them up and get them out the door, but it actually takes us 15 minutes. So that crunch on time is a real barrier. If you're a working parent, you know that time can be your Achilles heel. You're always sort of managing time and working against time, but time can also be your motivation. So there's something to be said about knowing that you have a finite amount of time to get things done. And so it can help you get things done and be motivating in that area. After school sports and activities are always going to be a crunch on feeding the family and the time you have to do that. Because, an activity might be an hour, but that doesn't mean it only takes you an hour to have that activity happen. You have the time to prepare your child to go to the activity, the time to drive to the activity, the time to come home and unload the car and your child. So after school sports and activities can take a lot of time. And then think about that after school phase. I always said that 3 to 6 p.m. time frame was always a crunch because you have a lot of things you have to do between 3 and 6 p.m. You've got homework, you've got to make snack, clean up from snack, prepare dinner, set the table, cook. So there's a lot of things that need to get done in that time frame between 3 and dinner time or after school and dinner time. So when we're short on time, it leads to shortcuts, especially with food and meals and snacks. So what happens? Oftentimes we grab packaged snacks, or we hit the drive-through, or we decide that it's just too hard to make dinner tonight, let's do takeout. Or we actually make dinner, but we don't take the time to sit down and eat it. We eat on the run. And all of this, these, quick packaged snacks, drive-through takeout, not sitting down or eating on the run, all of these things can lead to mindless eating, where we're not really thinking about what we're eating or how much we're eating and whether we're satisfied with what we have eaten. It can also lead to repetitive meals or meals that have low variety to them. So we're making the same thing over and over and over again, and everybody gets a little bit bored. It also curtails the exposure or the adventure to explore other cuisines and other foods. So, being short on time can really sort of snowball a lot of disadvantages to preparing meals and having healthy meals on the table. So what are the solutions? Because again, I don't think that the time crunch is going to go away, but what can we do to sort of maximize our time, be more efficient with our time, and be better at executing those goals around feeding our families? So I'm a huge fan of setting up a schedule. So realistic timeframes for meals and snacks and communicating those timeframes to your children so that they understand and know what to expect when it comes to mealtime and snack time. So we also know that, and I'll link to this article, but an eating schedule can provide a framework not only for rhythmic eating or, your appetite regulation, but it also provides that framework for the flow of the day and the evening. So it makes things really predictable. It sections off different times of the day, and kids know what's happening, what to expect. And oftentimes when they understand the expectations, they relax and are calmer and are more cooperative. So that's really a bonus of setting up an eating schedule or a framework for eating. The other thing that can really be very, very helpful is to prep your food and cook ahead. So whether you're washing, chopping, and storing food, or if you're batch cooking items for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the week ahead of time on the weekend, or if you're cooking in bulk, you're tripling a recipe and making 3 entrees, serving one of them for dinner that night, but freezing the other 2. I go through ways to help you more efficiently prepare meals and snacks in an article over on my blog that I just published yesterday, so you can check that out too. It's really geared towards helping you be more efficient with your time, to prepare ahead of time so that things go smoothly and you actually accomplish those goals that you've set out for feeding your family. The other thing is using a meal plan, and I interviewed Jessica Levinson here on the podcast not too long ago. It was episode number 53, so you can head back into the archives of The Nourished Child, episode number 53, where I interviewed Jessica Levinson on her tips and tricks for meal planning. So 3 solutions. Get your schedule set up so you maximize your time. Prep and cook ahead. So do things ahead of time so it's easy to pull things together at the end of the day when time is tight. And then actually expand out your plan and plan a week ahead or 2 or 3 days ahead using a meal plan. That really can help you stay on track, stay on budget, stay on time, and achieve that goal of feeding your family healthful meals. Aside from time being a huge barrier for families during this back-to-school time rush, number 2 is money. Most people I know don't have unlimited financial resources. They're on a budget or at least trying to contain their costs around food. So the reality is the cost of food and the cost of living is increasing. Food prices in 2019 were expected to increase between 1 and 2%, with dairy up between 3 and 4%, vegetables up 2.5% to 3.5%, and fresh fruit 2 to 3% more expensive. So, money can be a big barrier to getting healthy meals on the table. Some people think that healthy eating is expensive, and it can be, but it doesn't have to be. Real food like eggs, milk, and other dairy products, in-season fruits and vegetables, canned, wholesome foods like beans, and other staples like rice, pasta, canned tomatoes, they can all be economic options, and they're often on sale in the grocery store. You just got to kind of watch the flyers and see what's happening each week. But think about it. Even a box of brownie mix is cheaper than buying the baked brownies from the bakery. So you don't have to sacrifice healthy eating just because you're watching your wallet. What breaks the budget? Well, we know for a fact, eating out, hitting the drive-thru, opting for made-for-you snacks and dinners like bakery items, pre-made lunch items, takeout food, all of those break potentially your food budget. So how do you battle this? What are some of the solutions? Coupon clipping. I'm not a big coupon clipper myself, but I do take a glance at those. And I do notice when I walk into the grocery store what is on sale that day there. Obviously, produce, whatever is in season, is always going to be less expensive. So focus your meal planning around in-season produce. They always have 10 for 10 sales in my area. I'm sure at some of the grocery stores that you have in your area, there's some sort of regular sale campaign that's going on. But stock up. When they have those 10 for 10 sales, stock up. I do it with pasta. I do it with cans of tomatoes, tuna. I do it with a lot of different things. Obviously, if you've developed a meal plan, try your hardest to stick with it. It is going to be more economical for you. When you go off the meal plan and you hit the takeout or you order in or you decide to go out, if you haven't planned that financially into your meal plan, it will take you off course. Another solution, obviously, as an extension of that recommendation is cook at home. Try to cook at home as much as possible. And one of the little tricks that I like to do is to try to make 2 dinners out of 1 entree. So for example, like a roasted chicken dinner I'll make on a Sunday, and then I'll take the carcass and I'll boil it off with whatever, leftover onions, celery, carrots, herbs, whatever I have, and make a broth or a soup base so that I can make either like chicken and noodles or chicken and dumplings. Or I might take the leftover chicken and shred it and make quesadillas for a meal, or chicken salad for a lunch. So you get the idea. Make 2 meals out of 1 dinner, which is a real money saver. It's awesome. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Simple Mills. Simple Mills enriches lives and bodies through simple, delicious, real foods. They strive to make healthful choices easy by offering food that tastes great in the moment and nourishes your body for the long term. Simple Mills chooses real whole food ingredients that you can pronounce and that your body will recognize. They now have nearly 30 clean label products from baking mixes, cookies, and crackers, using nothing artificial ever. Their almond flour crackers are delicious and perfect for a mid-afternoon snack. I've picked them up myself at the airport when I'm traveling. If you're looking for a convenient dinner option, their pizza mix is an easy fix that the entire family will love. Or add their super easy to make artisan bread as a side to any meal. Check out Simple Mills at www.simplemills.com and use the code JillCastle20 for 20% off their products. Fractured families. Everyone's busy and going in different directions. This was my reality for many, many years, so I know the pain and frustration that's around this issue. Feed everybody breakfast, send them off to school, exercise, get myself ready, go to work, spend the whole day at my office, then come home for dinner. My husband worked full-time and traveled a lot, and I had 4 kids who played sports after school and participated in other after-school activities. My schedule, for my kids anyways, seemed to change every 2 months with sports and activities, and my husband's travel schedule was oftentimes unpredictable. I like to call this the fractured family syndrome. It's so common in today's world. Everybody's going in different directions. It's hard to get everybody together for even one event during the day. But we as parents have to hang on to this notion of having one event each day that brings our families together. And for me, and I hope for you too, that's mealtime. So you don't have to give up on mealtime. But a lot of families are. Listen to some of these statistics on family meals. The frequency of family meals has declined by 33% over the last 20 years. And families spend 50% of their food budget on restaurants and 49% on groceries. 46% of families say that eating together on a regular basis is difficult to do. And I agree, it is difficult to do, but it's not impossible. Yet, 24% of teens want more family dinners together. And we know that 3 family meals per week are associated with healthier eating, healthy weight, better grades, and positive emotional and mental health. So how can you get everyone together? Well, for me, as I said, family meals were very important, and I tried to have family meals most nights of the week, whether everyone was there or not. I created the routine so that whoever was around could show up. And, I remember for years, my daughter, who was the swimmer, could never eat with our family because she had practice during dinner time. So I would make her dinner or her dinner plate and hold it for her for when she returned home. And then I would sit with her while she ate her dinner. So I always made sure that even though she couldn't make it to our family meal, I would sit with her, or my husband, one of us would sit with her so she wasn't eating alone. I did that because research shows that the presence of even one adult or a caretaker is beneficial to kids' emotional, mental, and physical health. So if you have a fractured family, or you have that fractured family syndrome going on in your family, figure out a way that you can execute a time, hopefully around meals, that you can all be together at least 3 times a week. Maybe you do that on the weekends when the schedules are a little looser and you're not, having to factor in your work schedule, for example. Or you do it at a different time of day. It doesn't have to be dinner time. Maybe it's breakfast that you're all able to be together. So, or even just snack time after school. But that cohesiveness, that sitting down together, that talking with each other, communication, with the focus being more on connecting than it is on the food and the eating. So the food and the eating are secondary to the connection that you're trying to create at that family table. Now, moving on, we've gone through the top 3. Number 1 was time. Number 2 was money. Number 3, fractured families. What is the 4th barrier to this mealtime, healthy eating, back to school rush? Medical concerns. So more and more kids have medical concerns and they impact eating. Things like food allergies, extra body weight, being underweight. Some kids have diabetes, GI conditions. All of these medical concerns can potentially hinder getting meals on the table at any time, but particularly during that back to school rush. Accommodating a medical concern obviously can make dinner time preparation, meals, snacks in general challenging because you're keeping one eye on that medical condition while also trying to get meals that are healthy, nutritious, your kids will eat on the table. It might mean using different kitchen prep techniques, as in the case of gluten intolerance, where you have to have a clean kitchen prep area for gluten-free food. Just to give you some stats on what we're thinking, where we're at with sort of medical conditions with children, 1 in 13 kids have food allergies, 1% of the population has celiac disease, more have gluten intolerance, 1 in 5 children have weight concerns. So there are a lot of medical conditions that can influence or even perhaps curtail or make meal prep, family meals, healthy eating a little bit more difficult. So what can you do about that? Well, obviously, planning ahead is one of your greatest allies in managing nutrition, meals, and any health concerns. For weight gain, for children who need to gain weight, optimizing snacks to be more calorie dense is an effective option. For children who might be picky or who might not have the best balanced diet, making sure you put a little more focus and emphasis on fruits and vegetables and whole grains. You might decide to serve meals family style instead of plating your children's food. That can be an effective way to get more buy-in with mealtime, but it can also help you manage different conditions without stigmatizing the child who might need special arrangements around their food intake. You can also use specialty products, especially like gluten intolerance or a gluten-free diet. Check out Simple Mills. I like their crackers for snacks, their brownie mix for sweets and treats. We have a gluten intolerant member in our family, so it's been fun to try out some of the Simple Mills products. I just made the brownies the other day, and I made the banana muffins, to which I added some chocolate chips too also. And my daughter was so excited to have some gluten-free options because it's a struggle for her when we may not be tuning into her needs front and center. Almond flour is the base for some of those Simple Mills products, so it won't be okay if your child has a tree nut allergy or potentially coexisting peanut allergy. But other than that, what I love about those products, they're preservative-free. They have a very simple, short list of ingredients, and they're really easy to make. For example, making the brownies and the muffins was just adding eggs, water, and some oil to the mix. So super fast, super efficient, super easy. Okay, the last barrier that can get in the way of healthy eating during this back to school time is the big one. It's the human factor. It's whether your child is cooperating with you or not. The individual wants and desires of each family member can be a barrier. For instance, you have that perfect meal planned. It's on budget. It's efficient. You planned it out. You shopped for everything. You were efficient in getting it on the table. You put it on the table and your child won't eat it. So incredibly frustrating. I know. But if you know me and you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I don't care about whether your child likes what's on the table or not. What I really care about is whether you did your job and executed your plan. And what I want you to do is to pat yourself on the back and say, I did it, I provided, and it's up to my child to decide whether he's going to eat or not. So you don't have to be a hardo, though, about the whole thing. You can consider, what's your child's temperament? Is he a dig in his heel kind of kid? Do you need to partner with him and let him have a little more say in what's on that meal plan or that menu? Or, what's driving that choice or that refusal to eat from your child? Maybe he had a snack at school and then came home and had another snack at home, and he just doesn't have the appetite to eat dinner. So considering what is driving his choices. And then last, is there a way to compromise without giving your control over to your child? So can you say, well, you don't have to eat it, but you have to sit at the table until we're done eating. Maybe your child will pick at some of the food that's on the table and actually eat when you disengage. Or maybe you say to your child, I'm sorry you don't like the meal tonight, but I'd love to know what you'd like to have later on this week for a meal. I'm open. I have these things available. Tell me what you would be interested in eating. So compromising with your child. We're not always going to make everybody in the family happy. And if you get into the business of trying to make your children happy at mealtime because you're offering them exactly what you want, you run risks in other areas, like an unhealthy diet or a child who won't branch out beyond the foods that he wants to eat. So remember, you are at the helm when it comes to food and meals, your meal plan, your timing, your food. I like the idea or the attitude of, I'm the one in charge, this is what we have, and you don't have to eat it, but you do have to stick around the table and join us. You could also say, I know you don't care for this, you're not excited about this, so help me plan for the future. Know your child's temperament. Many strong-willed kids, as I mentioned, do better when they feel they have some say or control over the situation. Enlist them, get their input, get their help. Have a partnership with your child rather than fighting with your child for control. And please don't give your child all the control around food and mealtime. That never ends well. So meet in the middle, show goodwill. That always is very helpful. Let's wrap this up. The 5 barriers to getting the school year off on the right foot with feeding are time, money, the fractured family syndrome, medical concerns or conditions, and the individual temperament and aspects of your child and your whole family. The individual aspects of your child. Don't let these common barriers trip up your good intentions this school year. You can find more help by heading to the show notes over at jillcastle.com/091, where you'll find the links, articles, and other podcast episodes that are related to this one. I want to say a special thanks to Simple Mills for sponsoring this episode. Remember, go check them out and their products at www.simplemills.com and use the code JillCastle20 for a 20% discount on your order. Don't forget to subscribe to The Nourished Child. I just hit over 200,000 downloads in under 3 years of this show. So head over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite Android app and press the subscribe button. Even better, rate and or review the show. Up next on The Nourished Child, Catherine McCord from Weelicious and One Potato. We'll talk about her journey as a blogger and as a business developer and see what great advice she has about feeding kids. It's going to be a great episode, and I hope you'll tune in. But for today, thanks for joining me, and don't forget to give the child in your life a loving squeeze today. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Nourished Child podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child inside and out.